It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. You know, for the last couple of months, I've talked a lot about managed IT services, and a lot of my friends in the Immunity channel scratching their heads saying, Ray, you know, we've tried this before. We've had the consultants before, but at the end of the day, we never made any money. It's killing us. Folks, you never made any money because you didn't have the right disciplines to do it, or you really didn't understand what I'm talking about when I talk about IT services. So I wanted to reach out to my friend Greg VanDeWalker. Greg VanDeWalker heads up Collaborance, which is a master service provider owned by Great America. And you know, that deliverable is really in line what I see as a managed IT services deliverable. In other words, they're selling the stack and they're helping their partners sell the whole stack. Because a lot of folks are getting into IT services, they're selling one-offs, they're not making any money, it becomes a nightmare. And in order to do this right, you have to control the entire infrastructure, the entire technology infrastructure of those SMBs. So today, I thought, Greg, you know what? We need to pull the covers down a little bit, show these folks the numbers, show them the potential margins, and show them what the real IT service providers across the country are doing and how they're profiting, and not only that, driving revenues inside those accounts, especially during this time that we're in. Greg, great having you on. I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to do this.
Thanks, Ray. I'm really looking forward to digging into the numbers. It's going to be a good time.
Well, you know, numbers don't lie. They're unemotional, and you know, you just have to go by what the numbers tell you. You manage by the numbers, you'll always do well. I want to start out with the big number, and I've been talking about this number for a long, long time, folks. And it's the percentage of revenue if you include hardware and services. Hardware and services. What percentage of that is of the total IT spend in most businesses across the country? I know you got a slide that goes by the year. If you could pull that up, I think that's a great place to start.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Hang on one second here.
Well, he's pulling that up. I mean, it's time. We need to understand, you know, what we have right now available for us, and then we have to realize how much more potential there is. And there's no better slide than this one to show us that.
Yeah, let me pull this one up here. It kind of went away for a second. There you go. So right there, right?
Look at this. Phenomenal. In 2011, it said it was 1.5% total spend. If you look at infrastructure, technology spend, print was 1.5% in 2011. Let's jump over here to 2015. It's 1.1%. Does anybody want to freaking guess where it's at in 2020? Folks, people are going to print. It's not a paperless argument. The argument is there's like 99% more revenue with other stuff. We just got to figure out how to deliver that other stuff profitably, and that's the point of this video today with Greg. Greg, I appreciate that. That's just a real eye-opener video, and you know, I remember spouting those numbers back in 2013, 2014. People told me I was nuts. That's not true. Or they listened to this silly nonsense from Gartner that print is 90% of someone's revenue, and they were coming up trying to make people excited about delivering something that was really a small component. So Greg, here's the reality. I want you to show the stack so people really understand what is IT services. What the hell is Ray and Greg talking about? What are people actually going into the market with? And I know you have it all laid out, so we're going to show this slide. Keep in mind, folks, you can find this information. Just reach out to Greg. He has all this stuff. He'd make it available to you. It's hard to pay attention to that on the video, but I think it's important to show that slide. So pull that up.
Yeah, Ray, and this is a good point. And again, at Collaborance, we put everything on the website. Our pricing, our service offering is right there for you to look at. But, Ray, when you talk about IT services, if you look at the left-hand column, and so what the left-hand column is, this is what Collaborance, it says, is our standard MSP offering. So this is what we really started with back 11 years ago. We've certainly layered in a few things. Mm-hmm. And so these are all the services that we provide. Here is the reporting that is provided. Unified threat management. So this is, early stages of what our security offering included. And just, our email solution. And so, I hear a lot of people in print. I was talking to somebody last week who said, hey, listen, I think I've got an opportunity to do some Office 365 migrations and get into IT that way. Well, that's this right here. All these X's represent what dozens and dozens of MSPs in your town include in their standard offering. Not their robust security offering, but just their standard offering. And so it kind of begs the question, what kind of a value would a customer perceive you're bringing when you're just doing these couple of things, when again, the typical provider is going to be doing all of these different things. So that's part of, what is included in just the standard. We'll get into security a little bit later, Ray, but, try to put yourself in that end user SMB owner's seat. They want value. They know they're not IT experts, and you've got to be able to deliver all of these things just to get a seat at a table. Mm-hmm. This isn't even including your secret sauce. This is just what they're going to be expecting you to deliver right out of the gate.
Greg, here's a question. I look at, especially in the imaging channel space, what dealer in the world would run around town and say, hey, you know what, I know you need a sorter, I want to sell you a sorter? They wouldn't do that. They'd sell them the whole machine. They might sell them the whole machine and go back and add on the sorter, but they're sure as hell not going to just sell them a sorter to put in the hallway and wait for someone else to come in and sell them the machine. And that sounds simplistic, sounds a little bit, sarcastic there. But the reality of it is, doing one-off projects like that is a road to pure hell, and it's a road to extremely unprofitability. You're going to try to migrate somebody's 365 and run into all kinds of nonsense because you didn't do an assessment, let alone get paid to do any kind of assessment. And that's just not the road to go. The road to go is all or nothing. And it takes a real discipline to do that. And that's that Paul Dipple model. That's that Gary Pica model that we talk about a lot. Let me ask you a question. Let's just pull the onion back a little bit. And, Paul Dipple, who runs Service Leadership, I'm obviously a big fan of Paul's. He's spot on. I mean, when I was with Milton, I'd call myself a Dipple disciple. But, we lived and breathed that program, and he talks about OML, or operational maturity. What is this organization's operational maturity level? And when you have a chart that's published by him, can you show that? Because this operational maturity chart showing what MSPs are charging per seat, per user, we call them knowledge-based workers. But if you look at here, OML1, that means the least amount of experience. They kind of know a little bit about MSP work, but they really don't knock it out of the park. They're at 139. It goes all the way up to OML5. And folks, there's very few OML5s. It's kind of like my friends that run around the imaging channel saying they got a 90% first call close rate because they count their numbers different than they're supposed to. To get an OML5, you got to know your crap. You got to be delivering way above expectations of what you ever thought this would be when you started. But that's an interesting point. $192 per seat per knowledge worker. That means they're in front of a computer. Folks, Greg, bring yourself back down here so we can see. So, when I think about our friends, they spent about 5 or 6 years trying to learn about seat-based billing based on print, like that was going to migrate them into IT somehow. That never made any sense to me. I was very critical of that approach because you're not going to take a printer and divide it by the seats, but you could easily add a printer. It's physical hardware cost and its services inside a seat when you're billing $190 per seat. That's an easy number to throw in there, a few bucks a month. But doing it on its own never really made any sense. So take a user. I'm an MSP. Let's say I'm knocking out of the park. Maybe I'm in the middle. I'm working with collaborants as an example, or maybe I'm doing it on my own. I go into an account, and let's say that account has 23 or so workers. I'm going to sell the whole stack to them. I'm going to do it the right way, the Paul Dipple way, the Gary Pica way. He calls it the chocolate cake. What does that look like to the MSP? What are they bringing home with that?
Yeah, so, these are legit numbers. These are things that we see every day in the business. And I just kind of want to walk through, what does a deal look like? And again, the OML numbers that you talked about, it's interesting to see how those have continuously creeped up over the years. The top of the OMLs, they keep getting better, but you know what? Also, the bottom is rising. I mean, I can remember back when he started doing this, some of the price per seats were, in the 85 range. Now the OML ones are 139 a seat. And so, but I'm just going to walk through a real deal, Ray. And so if you're selling our basic MSP offering and you're out at 130 bucks a seat, our all-in cost of goods sold is 70, so you're making 60 bucks a seat. That's 46% margin or 85% markup. So not bad for, you're going to have some sales expense in there because you do have to have a sales rep. Even forget about collaborators. Let's just say that you're doing this yourself and you've built your entire infrastructure. it's a good margin. It's not a great margin, but there's a lot of room for you to improve. So let's just look at an average one at $1.60 a seat. Now you're in the 56% margin range. And again, we've got partners that are certainly doing more than this, but I'm just trying to show how realistic it is if you're in the middle of the road, not the super high end. I'm not, saying this is the top 2% in what you can make. This is the middle where the bulk of the people are, and you're in that 56% margin range. You shift over to our security offering to the right, so that includes everything in our MSP offering plus our security package. You're at the 60% margin. That's really good margin for you to be layering into your business as a print dealer. And the other piece that's so important is this is that monthly recurring revenue that is way, way more valuable from a business valuation perspective than the hardware. I know we're going to be talking about hardware in a little bit, but the value of these dollars is so much greater than the hardware part of your business.
Here's something interesting, Greg, and I think a lot of people really need to pay attention to this. Can you pull that back up real quick, that slide?
Will do.
We go out in the marketplace and we think our printer's secure, so we're all of a sudden we're security providers. Folks, look at the difference between these two numbers. Without the robust security packages, we're at 160 per seat. Over here with those security packages, we're at $250. That's a lot of money per seat. Security is extremely valued. Don't undervalue it. Don't run around and talk about being in the security business unless you're willing to get $90 per knowledge worker a month for those services. Anyway, come on back. I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of people don't realize the value in security. They think it's some, attention getter in a customer's office. But if you don't understand the value in that $90 per seat, you're not a security sales company. You're not. You're doing it as a hobby. So let me ask you a question. Now we showed the top line and bottom line numbers. Let's dig deeper into this so we can see how it all breaks down. So if I know that Collaborants obviously is owned by Great America. They have a leasing industry, leasing business. So if I'm an MSP and I have, $50,000, $80,000 worth of hardware and I want to finance that as part of this whole package deal, I can do that. So what does that look like? What does it look like if I include some hardware based on those same amount of seats, 20 seats or so?
Yeah. No, and let me pull that slide up right now. And Ray, again, I'm not going to use some, top 5% example. This is just super basic. So in the example that you just saw, that was a deal that was for a 24-user environment.
Okay.
Everything in there was pretty solid except the desktops. Obviously, when in our stack, there's a UTM appliance, there's a BDR appliance, so that's buried into our monthly number. But the end user just had some super old desktops, and 16 of those needed to be upgraded. We needed to obviously do the 365 migration, so there's some labor there and some installation. And this particular MSP, their burden cost is $71.
Okay.
So here's what the deal looked like. The retail on the desktops was about 24 grand. You see the service for the migration, the service for the installation is about a $29,000 deal, which equates to an $870 a month payment. Look at the margins on the right. Again, our best-in-class providers, they sell a bundled solution. And that is something that actually should resonate with the copier channel.
Absolutely.
They're good at selling total solutions. And so, we'll get to the monthly breakdown on the next slide. But look at just the margin on this deal. Hardware margin, almost 25%. The typical IT company, when they're just selling hardware with no services, Ray, they're in the 5 to 7% range.
Absolutely.
It's not that good. And then obviously the labor, that's where almost 70% margin. And then so what does that mean to the customer? And again, this should resonate with the copier channel. The way you're going to market is just the bottom line there, Ray. It's $196 per seat, everything's included. And so that's the hardware. That's all the services. That's the installation. That's the migration. And again, this is not something that is an anomaly. This is down the middle of the plate. If you look at that 196 number, if you remember Dipple's number with the high OML people are selling just their services with no hardware, it's at that number. So again, I'm using this example because it's a super realistic, very common one. Now you have to know how to sell this. You have to know how to package this. You have to know how to identify value that you bring to your end user. But again, this is something, it's a teachable skill. And so, you know, this is something that copier dealers can do and start to really transition their business to be a value play, to be an IT services play.
Well, I got to be honest, Greg, when you look at 196.26 per seat, and I hear people saying, I can't, oh, that's just crazy talk. No one's getting those kind of numbers. Well, they are getting those kind of numbers. You just got to talk to the people that are actually getting the numbers, not the people that are trying to get the numbers. So, you know, Greg, here's what's interesting is, you know, our industry, if you look at the imaging channel, it's always been about the product which they service. And, you know, and I've done a few videos on this, but IT is really 100% about the services. And, you know, if you, can you pull that, I want to, because I really want to show something here. Pull the slide up where you show the hours at the burden rate. It was that slide before the last one. So when we look at this 7 hours, you know, this is a company that understands what it takes to deliver these services, what it takes on site. But it's more important that to understand that there's no manipulation here. In IT services, you don't just try to skim out all the services so you can add the dollars to the hardware like we've been doing for the last 50 years. So your margin on your hardware is more. 25% margin in a bundled solution is pretty damn good for 2020, as Greg just said. But the reality of it is we have to pay attention to this hardware cost. You can come back and talk to me now, Greg. But the problem is, you know, when you look inside how the imaging channel currently manages their services, you know, they manage it on a call level. They're managing travel time to and from. But when you're delivering IT services, you got to manage off the, off the W-2, man. You got to know exactly what those burden costs are, because you could have a tech that's a server admin trying to do some work that maybe a first level or second level tech could be doing. And, you know, and this is where dealers get in trouble. I think they don't understand how to move that manpower around. Do you guys help with those things? I mean, do you help an IT company understand their manpower?
Absolutely, Ray. And you bring up the shift left, right? Move it to the left, meaning the work should be done at the appropriate level. And so, number one, you have to identify that, but then you have to manage to that. And we certainly do that internally, and we try to help our partners understand that as well, to manage those costs, because again, like most businesses, labor is your biggest line item. And so the better you manage that, you can really hone in and ultimately manage your margin. And that's what we're all here to do, is to try to make money.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of best practices, Ray, whether you partner with us or there's other, you've mentioned Paul Dipple, you've mentioned Gary Pica. There's some really smart people out there that can help you with this if you're struggling.
No, I agree 100%, and it's time to. I mean, I truly believe our friends in the imaging channel. I don't even care if they want to do this or not anymore. I'm not trying to talk anybody into it. Those days are long gone. I mean, I think a lot of them, the struggle was that, we're into it, but we're doing it wrong, or we're not doing it as profitably as we could. And I would be more than happy to help people fix that part of it. But if it's about talking someone into getting into IT services, sell your damn business right now, and take the retirement. Because we have challenging times, Greg, but obviously with IT, it's extremely important, especially with the remote workers, the people becoming digitized. You'll start adding things to your stack that were unimaginable just 6 months ago. I mean, we all know these things are coming. So, my friends, I hope this helps a little bit. I think sometimes if you don't know what the math is, you don't know how you can make money, sometimes it just becomes a dream that's, unreachable. It is reachable. People are doing it. And I strongly suggest you reach out to Greg and see if he can't help you. Reach out to me. Greg, it's always great having you on. I appreciate you taking the time to go through these numbers. Is there anything you want to share before we end this?
Oh, thank you, Ray. I appreciate it. And there's one last piece. When we were talking about the MSP offering and the security offering, Ray, this is something that the whole channel has been transitioning over the last handful of years. As you and I talked about before we got on the video here, I'm going to guess that the Collaborant's offering, maybe in a couple years, that whole MSP offering is just going to be done. Because the expectation is going to be that full security stack.
Absolutely.
And so this is an industry that is in constant change because we are having to stay a step or two ahead of what our partners need or what our customers need. And I don't see the security piece continuing to be a bolt-on. It's just going to have to be part of what you provide. And there's no one company that can do it all.
No.
You have to start to partner because, you know, a typical copier dealer isn't going to go eat a SOC 2 themselves.
No.
And so you really have to just look at what does the market demand and how am I going to piece that offering together, provide a great product, provide a great service, but then ultimately make money at doing it. And it's a fun business to be in. It's a tough business, but one thing for sure, it's changing every day.
Well, that's for damn sure. It is changing every day, and it's getting exciting. But there's also one thing for sure, Greg, and I'm going to end this the way I always do. Status quo is the killer of all that will be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a fantastic day.